Hello and welcome. This is FSX and this is the QualityWings 787 Dreamliner. Probably one of the most anticipated aircraft in recent times, and this is going to be my personal first look at this particular aircraft. I've only owned this aircraft for a fairly short time, but I've done some flying with it, some hand flying and automated flying, so I'm still getting to know the systems and the aircraft itself, so this really is a first impression. Also please bear in mind that this is version 1.0 and QualityWings have made it clear that they are going to improve the product and release updates when necessary. So the very first thing we obviously get to see is the modeling, and both the external and internal modeling is absolutely stunning. I've always liked the Dreamliner. I think it's a very pretty aircraft, and yeah, they've done Boeing proud. The modeling is really nice. You get to see all the nuances and beautiful lines of the aircraft, and yeah, just stunning, absolutely stunning. The virtual cockpit, there's no 2D cockpit, at least I couldn't find one, is really well done as well. Lots of nice little details, really beautiful modeling. You can see all the switches and buttons, and pretty much everything works. Now, another thing that's very important, of course, is the sound. And yeah, I have never been on a real Dreamliner, so all I can go by is videos on YouTube. But from what I've gathered, it sounds very realistic and it sounds very nice. I personally find the noise level on the flight deck almost a bit too quiet. I have heard that the Dreamliner does have a very quiet cockpit environment, but somehow I struggle to see how it could be this quiet. I don't know, I might do the Dreamliner an injustice here, but to me it almost seems a bit too mute, if that makes sense. I would have liked to hear a bit more wind rush, especially at the higher speeds. But apart from that, it's actually really nice and very enjoyable. Which brings us to probably the biggest topic, which is functionality. I have never owned a QualityWings product before, I have to say that. This is my first one, so I didn't quite know what to expect. But yes, I am very pleasantly surprised. There's a lot of functionality on this flight deck, and a lot of options and a lot of things you can change. So yeah, the only thing I have to say, those of you who follow my channel are aware I am a real world pilot. I am trained on Boeing aircraft. Usually when I buy an FSX Boeing aircraft, it doesn't take me that long to get used to it and you know, to find my feet. But the Dreamliner, ooh, oh boy, this is a very different aircraft, and I'm amazed how far Boeing have departed from their traditional flight deck layout. So really, there's a lot of stuff I'm familiar with, but equally there's tons of stuff that just looks so different. The first and foremost one being that everything is touch screens. So it's just a different way of operating the aircraft, and of course it gives a lot of flexibility. You can swap the screens wherever you want. Where you usually have the ICAS, you can now have the FMS or the checklist or whatever you want. So yeah, it's almost a bit daunting, to be honest with you. But QualityWings have done a really good job of capturing all of this, and they allow you to fully interact with almost everything on the aircraft. There are a few minor bits missing, but to be honest with you, for the normal everyday simming, flying from A to B, you shouldn't miss anything. It is really well designed, really well laid out, and I'm still getting to grips with it, but so far what I've seen is great, really good, really good. Now all this complexity and all this functionality usually comes at a price, and that is performance. But I have to say, so far the aircraft is great. I have flown this into really busy airports with 100% AI traffic, real world weather, sliders almost to the full, and yeah, I've had a comfortable 30 to 40 FPS, which is great. So all I can say in that department is that the aircraft performs really well, and that I hope that other developers take note of this. FS Labs. Now, having all these systems is nice, but what about hand flying? Well, the first time I took this aircraft for a flight, almost the entire flight was manual. So I took off, flew around, landed, all without the help of autopilot or auto throttle, and yeah, overall she handles really well. One thing I found was that in terms of pitch, it almost seems a bit too overexcited, if I put it that way. You just need a tiny amount of back pressure on the yoke and the aircraft will immediately increase pitch or decrease pitch. Now usually aircraft are, first of all, they're very stable aerodynamically, and secondly there's a lot of inertia. So usually when an aircraft is in a particular configuration, you need a bit more back pressure, for example, to increase the pitch. But that's a minor point. All in all, once she's trimmed out and in the right configuration, you can almost let go of the controls and she'll just sit there nice and stable, just the way we like it. So we've discussed the main bits of the aircraft, and so far I've been full of praise. Is there anything I do not like? Well, yes, there are a few minor points which I think could be improved. The biggest one for me personally is that I find it very hard to read the instruments. I use chase plane and I have a standard setting where I sit on the captain's chair, and if I look straight ahead, I can barely read the instruments. I really need to zoom in to get a good idea of power settings and DME distances, etc. So I don't know if this could be improved. I hope they can, because at the moment it's a constant game of zooming in and out to get a better look at things, and especially on approach it's a bit distracting. Another thing I've noticed is this weird reflection here of the beacon lights on the engines. Usually you just get a gentle red glow, but here all we get is like a red box covering the engine cowling, which I don't know, it just looks a bit wrong to me. I assume this is a bug. I can't imagine it being supposed to be this way. The other thing I found is that the aircraft once in a while seems to do odd things, and it's hard to nail down because sometimes it does it and sometimes it doesn't. So here we are approaching Vienna, we have the approach armed, and the aircraft is about to intercept the localizer. So you would expect, once the localizer is alive, that the aircraft turns to the right to intercept, but instead it turns left and then almost recognizes that it's doing something wrong and then starts turning right. It's a minor thing, but it's not realistic, and I just find it a bit odd. There's another thing I'd like to show you. It's a minor thing, but I think we should have a look at it anyway. So here we are descending to 7,000 feet at 280 knots, and just as we reach ATC clears us to 6,000 feet, so we set that up and press flight level change, and voila, the speed changes to 275. So what's happening here is the MCP copies the actual speed of the aircraft instead of maintaining 280 knots. Now this used to be the case in, 737 300 and 400, and I think some of the older 747s do this as well. But really this has been abolished a very long time ago, because speed changing just on its own, it just introduces an error that is unnecessary. So I haven't seen this kind of thing in a very long time. And again, I'm not a Dreamliner pilot, but it would really surprise me if the Dreamliner would have this kind of error in it. So I put this down as a bug. One of the other things I tested was Autoland, and it worked really well. The aircraft did a nice smooth touchdown. What surprised me was that after a certain while, or I don't know what exactly triggers it, the autopilot simply switches itself off, and that is fine, but it does so without any warning, no indication, nothing. It just goes off, and then you have control, and I'm not quite sure yet where that point is. So I don't know. Again, I'm not a Dreamliner pilot, but I find it very unusual for the autopilot system to switch itself off without notifying the pilots. This is usually a red warning that comes on with oral and visual warning signs, and I don't know, I find it hard to believe that this should be the case, but again, I could be wrong, but I don't think so. So, where does that leave us with the QualityWings Dreamliner? We have a beautiful aircraft that is really well modeled. We have a very nice virtual cockpit, a sound that's very convincing and that I really like. Performance is great, functionality is really good, and we have been told that they're planning to add more, so really top marks for that. There are a few small bugs that could be ironed out, I think, but for me personally, I think this is a very accomplished and good product, and now I would think that a lot of PMDG customers like myself would be looking at this, and I guess one of the biggest questions will be, how does this compare to PMDG? And personally, I'm not sure whether that is the right question to ask. QualityWings have always done their own thing, they've created their own products, and I feel this product is pretty much in the same line with that. They didn't try to achieve something or set themselves a goal to compete with PMDG. They just tried to create a really nice aircraft, something special, and they've achieved that. They really have. The other thing to remember is that this aircraft is a lot cheaper than any PMDG products. It's I bought it for $60, and that includes the 787, 800 and 900 series. Whilst with PMDG we usually purchase a base aircraft and then have to pay extra should we want any other variants of said aircraft. So I really like this, I have to say, I really do. I know QualityWings until now have made fairly simple aircraft, so this is the first small step, so to speak, into the more realistic part of simulation. And yeah, if this is what they're starting out with, then hats off to them. It's it might not be as amazingly realistic as PMDG or FS Labs, but it doesn't have to be. It still feels great. It gives you all the functionality that you could wish for your standard A to B flight. It looks great, it flies great, it sounds great. I like it, I really do. And with that, I'm gonna finish this first impressions video. Like I said, I have only flown this aircraft a few times. There are probably a few things I still need to learn. The aircraft does come with 2 manuals, which are really well written and which I have used. For those of you who are thinking of buying it and have never owned a QualityWings product before, be aware there's a bit of a steep learning curve. They do things a bit differently to other manufacturers, but I do feel it's worth the effort because it is a really nice aircraft. Well, I hope this was useful, and I hope it helped you in giving you an idea what this aircraft is like, and who knows, there might be another Dreamliner video at some point in the future. Until next time, all the best.